Before the dam was installed, this was just a willow-infested, basically useless piece of ground. This road was always flooded in the springtime and provided no access up into the upper watershed. I'm Mark Gibson. I grew up in Montpelier, went to school at BYU, came back, took over the family ranch, worked for Monsanto for 25 years before I retired, and now I get to ranch full-time.
My name's Asden Barchi. I am native to Bear Lake, grew up here on a family farm out in Georgetown. Went to Utah State, studied agricultural business there, and then ended up deciding that it was more worthwhile to move back here and contribute to my community than chase a big career. So I've worked a couple different places as I try to pay the bills and start my own agricultural pursuits.
In 1964, the irrigation company, along with the NRCS, or in those days the Soil and Water Conservation District, joined together and decided that they needed a multi-purpose dam. So this is all Forest Service land. It starts Forest Service down at the highway there and works up through this way. As you can see, this was the old road that come up through for the Forest Service. It was on this side of the road. The watershed that feeds the reservoir itself is 51,600 acres. There's a little bit of private ground just above the reservoir. Other than that, the rest of all this watershed is Forest Service. Because it's a Forest Service property, they require the Montpelier Irrigation Company to secure a special use permit. The permit started off at $50 in 1964, and then it gradually worked up to $75. And then 2018, they informed us that they were going to up it to $5,500. Dennis Stern, the forest ranger, went to the Forest Service and explained all the things that the dam has created, the importance it is to the community, what it has provided, and they reduced the rate down to $2,500, which we were able to live with. Last year, they said, we never received a bill. They said, don't worry, we're working on it, it'll come. In December, I got the bill, and they wanted $5,500 for 2021, and 2022 they wanted $8,500. So we discussed matters, and they backed off, and they allowed us to pay $2,700 in 2021, $2,700 in 2022, and now in 2023 the full special use permit will be $8,500. Forest Service claims that they need to keep up with the cost of real estate. They had it appraised. The reservoir itself is 131 acres. They had it appraised, and they've got a formula that they come up with that figure, and that's how they figure that what we should be paying. And so we're not trying to make money off of the reservoir. It's just covering our fees for a company. So to jump those fees from what they were to what they want is quite a hit for the company.
I mean, it directly affects producers and the water users that use the water from this reservoir, but this really is an issue that our whole city, our whole community should be aware of and should be at the steps knocking on the door to talk about, because of the flood control that the whole city benefits from. And I think if we were able to convey that, the importance of this issue, that there would be some citizens that would be willing to voice their concern or their opinions about it.
So Congress enacted what they called the Colorado Ditch Bill back in 1976, I believe. It was an easement that if you signed up for it, it would allow your company to, you had to apply for the permit or the easement, do a survey on the reservoir. For whatever reason, our company didn't do it, and I'm understanding a lot of companies didn't do it. But those that did have had that fee waived. So what we're asking is for Congress to reenact the Colorado Ditch Bill and give us time to reapply and put that into service. The reason we believe that it's fair and equitable is for 50 years, the irrigation company paid $25,000 a year on a loan payment that we provided services for everybody else. We don't receive money from Fish and Game. We don't receive money from recreationists. We don't receive money from the Forest Service for the restoration projects that we did in the upper watershed. We don't receive kickbacks from the city of Montpelier for the flood control that we offer and we provide for the last 50, 60 years. We do none of that. We foot all the costs and have all the liabilities that go along with the dam. And so it's our belief that that's only fair and right that we get treated with the special use permit. So I asked the Forest Service, which our local Forest Service has been very, very good to work with, and we really appreciate them. And I asked the Forest Service what would happen if we were not able to come up with that special use permit, with that fee. And they said, well, we'll ask you to remove the reservoir, which obviously is not an option. It was a $3 million project in those days and probably a $15 million project today. So the second alternative was to open the gate and let the water go and not supply any water.
I'd like to see some common ground met, a compromise met. I understand that land is a scarce resource, you know. We live in a world of scarcity, so I understand that they put a value on this ground, but it's also a value that's not reflective of the worth of the ground. This would be a swampy slough that wouldn't be accessible by anybody if we had to lift the head gate and drain the reservoir. So there's enough value added by the reservoir that I would like to see that value realized and used to negotiate a compromise in this situation.
If Washington, D.C. would bring back the Colorado Ditch Bill and allow reservoirs to go in and reapply, or even put in a clause to have everybody reapply, and allow irrigation companies across the West to get a waiver on their structures and the ditches that supply the water to the irrigators, then it would be a huge benefit to all the irrigators and all the agriculturists across the West. And I think it's the only option that we have.
Let's keep going.